Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for our next Let's Talk, Integrity and Ethics. And today, actually, we're going to focus on performance evaluation, PGCS, because we've completed the initial process, and we are coming up on the end of this year's cycle. And I know it's been an awful lot of work for a lot of folks, but we thought it'd be a good idea before the ratings come out just to spend a few minutes and talk about the process, talk about the ratings, talk about what's going on and what you can expect next. So that's what we will try to do today in about a 15-minute or less period. Great, thanks. All right, so first let's introduce ourselves. I'm Cindy Gillespie. I'm the director here at DHS.
Tanya Williams, Director at the Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Education.
Damian Higgs, Chief of Human Resources.
All right. So all of you who just went through performance evaluations, there is a 1 to 5 rating. And as you remember, here at DHS, we do our process where we basically work from a 1 to 3 rating here. So, and there's a reason we do that. Tanya, I'm going to ask you to start and talk about the reason we set ourselves up to have a top end of a 3 and what a 3 means, 2, a 1. Yeah. Talk about our performance process, please.
So as we've calibrated the 1 through 3, and I've been here for a couple of years, and I hear this frequently from employees about what a 3 is to employees. A 3 to me, and what I try to convey to employees is, it means you are doing your job and you're doing your job very well. You come to work every day, you're on time, you follow DHS policies. If you have reports and items that are due, they're in on time. And then if you are in the 2 range or 1 range, maybe it's because you're new to the agency and you're learning, or you have areas that you need some improvement in. So I kind of start from that 1 to 3 range in that way.
So essentially a 3 is an employee that is doing everything that is expected.
Everything that's expected, whatever,
doing it well.
And doing it well.
So most employees should be 3s.
Yes.
Or else, I think somebody gave me an example. They said basically a 3 is an employee who does their job really well. You don't have any complaints about a 3 if you're a supervisor. That 3 is doing everything you would want someone to do and doing it very, very well. If they're not, they fall over into the 2 category, and as Tanya said, that can be as simple as they're new. They've only been here a month or 2. They don't really know the job that well. Doesn't mean the employee isn't going to be a fabulous employee. In fact, I know of one that got a 2 last year that ended up as a 5 this year. But it means that they're new enough in the job that you really can't tell what their performance is going to be. Or a 1 is where the individual is having some very serious issues. Major concerns, right? Meanwhile, you go from there to the other side. If somebody is doing their job, doing it really well, and they're a 3, what's a 4 or a 5?
You want to jump? So a 4 or 5 is when an employee is, and I have some examples, but it's when you're doing your job well, you're doing all the things that you're expected to do, but then you're taking on maybe another employee who is out for some period of time, their job, and you're also doing their job well. You're getting their things in on time. Or you see gaps in your office or the area that you work in, and you go to your supervisor and say, could I help? I think I have a solution that might help fix this problem. What I see commonly with these employees is they have an incredible attitude about it. They don't expect anything. They just step up and offer their assistance consistently and want to help out and really have very little to no expectation about anything in return. They just want to help the agency move forward. So they have a great attitude. They fulfill all the things of a 3, and then they do these things that really exceed consistently or exceed in big ways. We saw many employees this year who took on several jobs, in fact. And not only were they doing their work here, but they were also doing incredible work in the community. So it's amazing when you see across the agency some of the things that our employees do in the 4 or 5 category.
Y'all have some examples?
Yeah, we have a lot of examples as far as just employees who do go above and beyond, just besides their job. But, the range of employees that we had, we started GS01s that got 4 or 5 for this cycle. So, it's not just for one specific grade, it's across the board. But a GS04 on his own initiative, received approval of care teams and administration and began hosting some of the male residents with an interest in carpentry in his shop, engaging them in safe tasks as a hobby and craft. And those that were unable to go, he would take pictures, went back to the facility and actually showed people pictures of tools and different things that you could actually do with these tools. A lot of these are also routinely volunteering to assist in different areas. And a lot of it is not being asked to do it, but just seeing that there was a need and I want to step in and help in this situation. Also, this individual built special outdoor furniture and equipment specific for various needs of the residents. And that's also showing that we're saving DHS dollars, because instead of having to outsource, get special people to come in and build equipment, we're just doing it all on site because this individual knows how to do those things. Also, we had another example of someone who designed thank you cards, for outside people who donated money. Instead of going out and having a firm design cards or whatever, this individual stepped in and was like, oh, I would like to create the cards. Also, started looking at internal forms that the facility had that were hard to read, missing information, took initiative, retyped the forms, got them laid out, got them printed, and then there's now templates available for the facility, so anytime there are changes, they're available to be used. Also, this individual noticed that one of their mail-outs, they were using a certain size envelopes, and they couldn't figure out why they were using a certain envelope. And he went back and said, if we decrease the size of the envelope that we're sending this out in, we can save 50 cents per mail out. So that's another example of saving the agency money. So these, there's plenty of, depending on how far we want to go, but just various examples of even a GS01 that worked at a facility that's a cook and, decided, I want to learn everything my supervisor does. I want to learn that, hey, we need to order food in advance for not only my shift, but all the shifts, even the weekend shift. So taking the initiative to look and see what I can do to make the area better.
I'll give a couple.
Okay.
So as Damien said, they're really across the grades. This one actually is an administrative specialist, a GS04. And one of the common things that I saw is that their employees who develop tools and resources are forms. And so this particular employee actually created a checklist for handling mail and making sure that she had the correct contacts and was able to do it more efficiently and help disseminate and she did that for the whole division that she works in. So a lot of these have examples of tools and resources that they saw was a gap and they developed those, whether it's a form that could be more efficient and reduce redundancy, or whether it was developing a checklist or some other resource. This particular employee also is involved in sort of a paperless project, and so is really involved in scanning, but also really making that process very efficient, making sure that the files that are created in the scanning process are accessible and that there's really a good organizational way to find things.
And another example that I remember is actually where someone in the county, took it upon themselves and raised money for DCFS. There was a lot of things where they raised money for the Christmas foster care, and then also even some for the DYS facility. So it's not looking at even their particular.
That was in DCO.
DCO.
Yeah.
It was a DCO employee. So not looking just at their particular division, but looking at other divisions and seeing, oh, that's something we can do to help that division out. A lot of these, it just seems like they were not only volunteering to do their, coworkers' jobs, but they were also volunteering anywhere in a county or even in central office. It's like, oh, this individual over here needs help. I don't know a lot about it, but I will step in and see what I can do to help.
So another example, this is a GSO 6, and it's an employee who has caseload, and their caseload was around 70. They took on an additional 230 cases, so they tripled their caseload. And were able to do that in a very efficient way. They continued to do their normal routine caseload with all this additional caseload. They also very impressively had a lot of community external partners and outreach work that they did on behalf of the clients that they work with on their caseload. They were working with probably 10 or 15 different organizations within their community to make sure that families were getting resources, scholarships, just all types of resources for the families that they were serving.
And a lot of them, also stepped in when, supervisors or coworkers were out, like you said, Tanya, extended leave for periods of time and just stepped in and actually did that other person's job. Also there was another example of an individual in a county, I believe this was also DCO, that organized a food pantry to assist in emergency food needs for the counties. So, a lot of these people, to me, if I remember, in the 4s and 5s, these were people that were always the go-to people. The people that everyone was like, that is somebody that we can always go to that's going to give us the correct answer. If not, they will find the answer and get back with us.
But doing more than their job.
Doing more than their job.
Consistently, And that's, I think, the thing to keep, usually if you think about your office, if you think about what goes on, who this last year have been the people that have taken on the extra burdens, gone the extra mile, done the extra things. And that's really why we have ourselves set up to where a 3 is the person who does the job well, does it every day. It's because then there are also those people, and this is why a lot of times offices don't fall apart, when someone is out or going to be out for quite some time, somebody has to step in, or else our clients suffer and our operations suffer. And so the 4s and 5s are partly how we recognize that and recognize that for this year, that person took on a lot of additional burden and a lot of additional work and kept things going. So our process for doing that, I think you're all familiar with, and as we keep going, I think we're all getting more familiar with it. But the thing that makes it special for me, and I'm going to ask Damien to talk about the process of how we got to here, he and Tanya, but the thing that makes it special for me is in reviewing the 4s and 5s and the process we take to get there, believe it or not, we actually get together as an executive team. We take the day and we go through every single one. Every one that is written, we sit and we go through it, which is why, and we all discuss it as a group. So that's why when Damien says, and I remember this one and I remember that one, I cannot tell you, by the end of the day, we're exhausted, but we're also all pretty much in awe of what goes on here and how much people do above and beyond the work that the jobs they're supposed to be doing. It really is amazing. Damien, would you like to talk a little bit about the process?
Sure. So as you all know, the justification forms are sent up to your division director. They're reviewed at that level. The justification forms are then reviewed by 2 other division directors or chiefs that don't have an interest as far as, firsthand knowledge of that particular division, but they're reviewed there, and then they're reviewed and presented to the executive staff overall. And that way we can look at consistency across the agency. We can see all the wonderful things that are being done that, for example, there's something in DCO being done that, can be shared to everybody else. And then you can start thinking about, all the different things that your division may actually do. But it gives us a chance to actually look at everyone in particular, talk about why this person is deserving for a 4 or 5 rating, and because of all the wonderful things that they have accomplished.
I would add, just because I'm not sure if folks know this, but the names are redacted. So when Misha or Mary are reading my divisions, they have no idea who the individual is. So there's a lot of anonymity in it so that folks don't know that. But the consistency of the process, having been here for some time, makes me very proud to be a part of this work.
Yeah, it is interesting because the names are redacted. We're simply all sitting there, 20 of us, after this has already been reviewed by 2 other division directors in addition to that division's director. Then we're all sitting there and it's being read out what the person did. And it's very interesting. If there's a question, usually it starts with, well, why, Tanya, would that be? Is that not that person's job to do that? Sounds like they would just be doing their job and doing it well. And then the answer would be, no, that actually isn't their job. Their job is to do this. They did this also on top of. And then we all understand. Or sometimes it's, no, you're right, it is their job, and this is what they should be doing. And we go, well, then that's a 3. And everyone agrees. But we are getting that kind of consistency, we hope, across this organization so that you don't have one division making judgments differently than another division. And that is the point of that. Damien, you want to talk a little bit about what it looks like this year?
Sure. So the way DHS's scores is just like a bell curve. The majority of our staff will be in the 3. This year we ended up with around 11 or 10 in rating 1, which is the 1-star, around 702 in the rating 2s, 58, 19 in the 3 stars, and then the 4 and 5s we ended up with around 200 in each of those categories, which we actually doubled in the 4 and 5 category from last year. So we're seeing more accomplishments and more initiatives and more major things that employees are actually doing that actually got submitted this time. But, just the same, the bell curve as far as, how it should look for the majority of, great employees doing their job and doing it well.
I think it's important, as you say that, for everybody to understand. We do not start with any sort of numbers or limits, period. We go through it. We go through everything. When it's all over and done with, we look at it and go, how did that come out? Not, oh, we have too many in any category. So while the number of 4s and 5s doubled this year from last year, if next year it's double again and double the year after that, that's the way it is, right? That means that people are doing amazing things in addition to doing their job really well. So we aren't holding ourselves to any sort of limits around what that looks like. It's much more about making sure that we have a standard across the organization so it's consistent, and that a 4 in one division looks like a 4 in another division, and is really how that's going. So what happens now?
So right now we're working with DFNA to finalize the percents that we can award for 1-star, 2-star, 3 stars, 4 stars, and 5 stars.
They give us I think it's important for people to understand, we can't just go in and set what we want.
Correct. So they gave us guidance as far as the pay increases cannot exceed 2.4% of the agency's total annual base salary. So that's the dollar amount then in turn that we have to work with in order to fund the different percents at the different ratings. So we're currently working with DFNA to finalize those scores.
We plan to spend every penny.
Every penny that we can of that we do plan on using. And then once we do that, we can issue out those percents to you guys. The actual e-system opens up to employees on Wednesday, June 5th. So supervisors will be working with employees to set appointments so they can talk to you concerning your PGS score for, your position.
We had a few more 2s this year than last year, about 20 more.
We had about 20 more 2s
Which may be because of the turnover, more new employees.
And we had less 1s this year than we did last year.
Right.
And so in turn, and like I said, we doubled in the 4 and 5 category, pretty close. And then, the rest in the threes. So we had a good spread across the agency, and like I said, we had, in the fours and fives, we had employees GS01 all the way to the very end. It was not just any one particular grade.
So it's, we know it's a laborious process to go through every year. One of the things about ensuring that fours and fives, we all think it's wonderful that we have so many employees who are doing their job and doing it well and end up as threes. But we also know that employees who do more than their job, we want to make sure that does get captured each year. So it's great to see the fours and fives double. The stories we heard this year were absolutely wonderful. I know there's some efforts going on, Damien, by your office to help with some trainings. Why don't we talk a little bit about, as we go into this next year, particularly for supervisors who want to make sure you are able to really capture the things that employees do this year that really are going above and beyond.
So this year we will be working on trainings for each of the divisions and also giving some examples of fours and fives that were turned in, redacting all the information just to give supervisors a chance to look at some of the written documentation that we've received and some of the major accomplishments or initiatives that each of these individuals had taken. Tanya and I had also, talked briefly a while ago about, you should be looking to see if there are any gaps, anything that needs to be done in your area, and then working with your supervisor to say, hey, I see something. I would like to step in and see if I can come up with a solution. It's just, and then also just going to your supervisor and saying, is there anything that I can help with? A lot of the justifications that we did read were someone taking their own initiative and going out and finding things. It was not always the supervisor saying, hey, I have a project, who would like to work on it? But it's you actually going and trying to find those projects on your own. So we will be working with the training unit to actually train employees or train supervisors to say, here's the new process for this year, anything that we can do to make it easier and, as far as keeping track of your major accomplishments is also part of the employee's job to keep track of, here are things that I have done during the year, and letting your supervisor know.
And for the supervisor to keep track. I know, I think it was Jeff Dean who told me one of the things he does is as he goes through the year, he writes, when somebody is doing things that are above and beyond, he writes it up, just so that when it comes time, it's hard to remember back a year, right? When it comes time to write it all up, what you remember is mostly what's been going on in the last 2 or 3 months. And you may have forgot that 6 months ago you had somebody out for a month or two and someone else stepped in and just took over all those duties very quietly and kept things moving. So keeping track as you go through the year is very important for supervisors to do, because it's that consistency that you want to be able to look for, and you won't remember. You won't remember all the stories if you don't keep track of it as you go. So keep a file, keep track of it, and when it comes time next year, it'll be really easy to put it together and say, this is why this employee definitely is deserving of a 4 or a 5, because this is what they're doing way above and beyond what we expect them to do here every day. So with that, Marcy's nodding at me and going, time is up. So, thank you all very much. If you have any questions, just send us a note. HR, Damien, and team are prepared to answer any questions about the next steps of the process and the time. And we will let you know as soon as we have been able to finish the modeling and come up with what the percentages look like for this year for the different grades. Thank you.